Hey guys, hopefully everyone is doing well. Today's target is to see question number 13.25. I'm just reminding you that half of this question was solved in previous part 13.25A. We are actually related with leverage and capital structure. 24 questions has been solved. Lawrence in Gitman book and managerial finance we are related with. We have solved several questions related to capital structure where we have understood that there are two different states of capital structure. Equity financing, here we have seen common, preferred or retained earning, a form of equity financing. Then we have seen debt financing where we can take debt, loan, debentures or bonds. And then in this specific question 13.25, I will let you know that requirement of this question was suggesting to calculate EPS. Reminding you there are three different types of capital structure where there was a debt 20% of whole capital structure, 40% of whole capital structure and 60% of whole capital structure. And you have seen above that options of three different probabilities are present. 20% chance of selling their goods up to the level of 2 lakh, then 60% chance to sell at 3 lakh, 20% chance to sell at 4 lakh. We were having some fixed cost and tax rate was given. Existing capital structure was having 25,000 shares where there was no other capital. That means loan was not present. This was the basic or existing structure. 25,000 shares, no other capital. While options which were given to us were present to increase debt. Instead of no other capital, 20% debt can be taken or 40% or 60% debt can be taken. Then there were requirements. EPS were supposed to be calculated and we were need to calculate according to requirement. You can see that there were four basic divisions of calculation. First, without having debt, look over here, there were 0% debt, and then 20% debt we have seen, look over here, and then 40% debt was seen. So up till this we have completed our solution and we are now going to calculate our next procedure where we will see when your debt ratio has been increased. This is your debt equity ratio. Out of total capital structure, 40% debt was taken. And as you know that last stage we need to make income statements, EPS, for 60% debt. What we were doing, this was your existing capital structure for third part. And here we are going to choose everything present over here and we will hire these headings to solve our next part, and this would be the fourth part where our capital structure would be changed from 40 to 60%. Obviously, if total capital structure we have and 60% is debt, remaining 40% would be common capital, and these requirements are not needed. We can erase them, after which we will calculate our earning per share. Again, these are not needed. Okay, come to the upper side. Existing capital structure was having 250,000 and now we are changing our capital structure from 40 to 60% debt. So here debt would be 60% and your common stock will become 40%. Let's calculate. If total capital structure is $250,000, then we will see how much is 60%. So here you will calculate 60%. This would be your debt. 150,000 would be considered your debt, and common stock would be 40%. So here you may directly calculate 40% or just subtract 150,000 amount of loan. So in this way our initial calculations are completed. The last thing which we are going to calculate is your common shares. And for common shares, one share is for rupees 10 and we have 1 lakh as our common capital. So finally every input has been completed. Please note it down. We do have 10,000 shares, 1 lakh capital, 150,000 debt. Collectively it would again become 250,000. So our capital structure volume has not been changed, but proportion has been changed. I'm just reminding you the previous part of our question, and you can see over here 150,000 and 1 lakh, again collectively you have 250,000, but here 40% was debt, and please note it down, 250,000, 40% was your debt. And obviously for remaining part we will consider at common shareholders. If 40% of total capital is debt, then 60% would be our common. Here you have calculated 60% divided by 10 common shares. In this way our statement has been completed. Alright, come over here. For point 2 probability, in question it has been given that amount of sale is 2 lakh. We will follow the same, and here 2 lakh would be amount of sales. Variable cost is 40% of sale. To calculate that we need sales which is 2 lakh, and we'll directly calculate our 40% which is variable cost. Now we can calculate our contribution margin by subtracting variable cost from sales. Amount of sale over here is 2 lakh and variable cost is 80,000. By subtracting variable cost from sale, we will get our contribution margin. Fixed cost would remain same for all of the parts, and look over here, fixed cost is mentioned 1 lakh. So no matter what option we are doing, fixed cost would not be altered, 1 lakh. Here net margin or earning before interest and tax can be calculated by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin, and over here our contribution margin is 120,000. You will subtract fixed costs. So in this way we have got earning before interest and tax. Now it's time to calculate our interest is 12%, but we will see when your debt is 60%, how much rate of interest is suggested by book. Over here you can see when you have your 60% debt, our rate of interest on debt is 14%. So come over here and we need to change it as 14% according to requirement of our question. To calculate interest we need previous income, which is EBIT, and that income is 20,000, and we will calculate 14% multiplied by 14 divided by 100. We have got our interest. Earning after interest is now open to calculate by subtracting interest from EBIT. EBIT 2,000, 20,000, and you will subtract your interest, which is 2,800. So we have got our earning after interest. Now tax would be applied. 40% rate is given in the question. We need previous earning 17,200. To calculate 40% multiplied by 40 divided by 100, we have got our tax. Earning after tax is now open to calculate by subtracting tax from previous earning. Earning after interest and before tax, that means previous earning 17,200, and you will subtract your tax 6,880. We have got our earning after interest and after tax 10,320. No preferred dividend is present over here. It means Your net earning available to common shareholders can also be calculated. Here, interest was supposed to be calculated. Okay, so we'll have to see how much debt was present, and we have calculated debt over here. Look, debt was 150,000, and we need to calculate 14% upon 150,000. So guys, we have our earning after interest and tax that is surprisingly in minus stage. You can see that here you have got minus. Okay, then we are open to calculate earning available for common shareholders by subtracting preferred dividend from previous earning minus 600, and you will subtract preferred dividend, which is 0. So we have got minus 600. I think this is the first time when we have got negative earning or loss we are facing in case when you are taking 60% debt. So it's completely unfavorable for the organization to increase our debt because it had gone negative. Anyhow, we are now open to calculate our earning per share by dividing net earning by number of shares. Net earning over here is 600, and you will divide it with the number of shares were calculated at above. Here common shareholders are 10,000, so just divide it by 10,000. So first time we have got a negative earning per share, which is minus zero point 0.6. 10,000 minus 0.06. So it means we have completed our first case when probability was 0.2. What we are following, I'm just going to remind you, look, we have three options. 0.2, 0.6 and 0.2 probability are given. This probability means 20% chances are we will sell at 2 lakh, 60% chance to sell 3 lakh, 20% chance to sell 4 lakh. We have completed 20% chance. Now we will see 60%. Over here we are going to calculate our 60%, where as you know that for 60% probability we have 3 lakh sale. So here you will be writing 3 lakh as your sale, after which variable cost is needed to be calculated, which is 40% of sales. Amount of sale is 3 lakh, and you will calculate its 40%. We have got our variable cost, after which contribution margin is open to calculate by subtracting variable cost from sales. Amount of sale here is 3 lakh, and you will subtract variable cost, which is 1,20,000. So we have got our contribution margin. Fixed cost, as usual, I have told you that in all sections your fixed cost would not be altered and it would remain 1 lakh for all the sections. So here just write down 1 lakh, after which EBIT is open to be calculated by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 180,000 is contribution margin, fixed cost 1 lakh. So we have got our net margin as 80,000. Interest now would be calculated 14%. Amount of debt we have decided is 150,000. And you need to calculate your interest 14%. So multiply by 14 divided by 100. We have got our interest 14%. So it means we are now open to calculate our earning after interest but before tax. Please just few seconds give me. I'm just returning back. All right, guys. Actually, I was telling you in all the lectures that these lectures are absolutely live. So I don't pause, I don't edit. So due to live lectures, sometime it happens, and it's, I think, the first time I have taken a break of 10 seconds just because of an urgent piece of work. So where we were supposed to calculate our amount of interest, 21,000, and we are now going to calculate earning after interest by subtracting interest from EBIT. So your EBIT is 80,000. You will subtract amount of interest, which is 21,000. We have got our earning after interest 59,000. Tax would be calculated 40% upon previous income. 59,000 is your previous income, and you will calculate 40% as your tax. After calculation of tax, we are now open to calculate earning after tax by subtracting amount of tax from previous earning, 59,000, earning before tax, subtract tax, and you will get earning after tax. No preferred dividend is present in question. So we will now calculate earning available for common shareholders by subtracting preferred dividend from previous income. Previous income 35,400, no dividend, so it means earning available for common shareholders is 35,400, and we are now able to calculate our earning per share, for which we need 35,400 is your earning available for common shareholders, and we will divide it by number of shares were mentioned over here, 10,000. So you are just going to divide it by 10,000. We have got our statement. Now we are open to put it on our calculator. So we have got 3.54 as earning per share. And this was supposed to be done over here. And here you were supposed to write statement only. In this way, you will come to know that how we had changed it. Okay, now I understand. So just consider this point was, instead of decimal, why not we should put brackets or inverted commas can be used. Actually, Excel takes signs as formulas. So now it is okay because statement is also visible. Answer is also visible. In this way, when you will take screenshot or when you will observe how we have calculated, it would be in front of you. So next procedure is to calculate earning. Next procedure was to calculate earning per share for second, and it means statement has been completed for probability 60%, and last probability 20%. We will go back to the question and look over here. The last 20% probability is to have 4 lakh amount of sales. So over here you will write your sales, which is 4 lakh. Okay, so variable cost would be calculated by taking 40% of sales. Amount of sale is 4 lakh, and then you will take 40%. In this way you have got your variable cost 1,60,000. Contribution margin can be calculated by subtracting variable cost from sales. 4 lakh amount of sales and variable cost is 1,60,000. So we have got 2,40,000 as contribution margin. Fixed cost, as earlier mentioned, it would remain same, 1 lakh for any section, any part, for any calculation. You will have same fixed cost, that would be 1 lakh. Alright, now EBIT is open to be calculated, earning before interest and tax, by subtracting fixed cost from contribution margin. 240,000 contribution margin and 1 lakh is your fixed cost. So we have got our earning before interest and tax. Now interest would be calculated. We have got earning before interest, and interest would be calculated. As you know, in this section we have decided 60% debt. It means 150,000 is your amount of debt, and rate is 14%. So multiply by 14 divided by 100. We have got our amount of interest. This was earning before interest. And now we are open to calculate earning after interest by subtracting interest from previous income. 140,000 previous income, amount of interest 21,000. So we have got earning after interest. So we are now open to calculate our tax. 40% for which we need previous income. 119000 is your income and you will calculate 40%. 119000 was income before tax, then you have calculated tax. Now income after tax can be calculated by subtracting tax from previous income. 1,19,000 previous income, amount of tax 47,600. So we have got your earning after tax 71400, earning after tax, but no preferred dividend is present, and earning available for shareholders would be calculated by taking previous income 71400 and subtract preferred dividend. We have got earning available for common shareholders. Last step of this category, we need to calculate our earning per share. One thing left, we were supposed to match the answers. So this is our fourth income statement. Fourth part we are making. Look, this was 4, and first EPS is minus 0.06. So here 0.06, and next is 3.54. Look over here, this is fourth part, 3.54. Okay, two answers are matched. It means we are now free to calculate earning per share for last part, for which we need net earning. Net earning for this part is 714,000, and we need to divide it with number of shares are 10,000. For this part specifically, we have calculated number of shares as 10,000. After which we are open to calculate EPS by dividing net earning with number of shares. Number of shares 10,000 and net earning was 71,400. So we have got 7.14 last earning which we have calculated, EPS which we have calculated 7.14. So it means this first part, A part was to calculate EPS. First part has been calculated. We have 4 different options of 0% debt, 20%, 40 and 60% debt, and then for each proportion we have calculated EPS for 20% debt ratio, 40% debt ratio and 60% debt ratio. In this way this part has been completed. And as you know that we need to calculate standard deviation of EPS. Standard deviation answers are available over here, and for this you will calculate. These are 4 proportions. EPS given. For each EPS you are needed to calculate standard deviation and coefficient of variation. But before that we need mean or expected EPS. But we have calculated our general EPS and we need to calculate expected EPS first. Alright, it's part of calculation of standard deviation. You will come to know how to calculate. Though we have, I think 20th question we have solved where we calculated standard deviation and coefficient of variations as well. So first part, make your mind, we are going to calculate our standard deviation for each of these 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have got 4 answers 1, 2, 3, 4. So each part will have its own standard deviation. Let's move on. For this we do have this statement, 0% debt and 3 EPS amounts are calculated over here, 0.48, 1.92 and 3.36. What we are going to do, probabilities are given over here, 0.2, 0.6, 0.20, and we will mention, let's close it down. Here was end of this part. Let's mention the part has been ended, and over here we are now going to calculate the standard deviation, for which first we will write probability, and this probability would be mentioned as f. We will consider it as f. So these are headings. Let's wrap it up so that they can be visible easily. Probability would be considered as f, little more space is needed. Alright guys, after which what we need to write down probabilities, first was 0.2 and then 0.6, it is given in your question, and then again 0.2. So in this way first column is completed. We are up to for calculation of standard deviation, and you will come to know how to calculate it. Second thing, we need EPS, but kindly remember this is your first part. We are calculating standard deviation for the first part. EPS for first part, look over here, we need to calculate for 20%. Come up and look over here, this is your first part, and for first part 20% probability is here and your EPS is 0.48. Understood? This EPS would be written in front of 20%, and then you will solve it for 60% as well. Again, do your practice well. This is your first part and 60% probability is present over here of its EPS 1.92. Put it over here. Again, go to your first part. Look, this was your first part and probability 20% was calculated over here, and your EPS is 3.36. So in this way our statement has been completed. Look, when you have a lengthy question, obviously it need your attention, very importantly your attention. Why? Because a single amount if you will put in a wrong way, you will not be able to get your exact answer. This EPS, we will suppose it as X. So what elements we have got here? X. Why I am highlighting it? Because it would be used now for further calculation. Alright guys, here you will calculate your probability and it would be multiplied by EPS. That means F would be multiplied with X. Okay, so here probability was 0.2 and you need to multiply it with 0.48. So we have got first product of fx. Actually you are calculating it fx. The people with ICOM or a very basic knowledge of stats, people with basic knowledge of stats, they will be understanding it very easily. But one who have not previous knowledge of stats, just consider this probability as f and EPS as x. We are going to calculate our average EPS for first section, for which what you will do, you will multiply fx and divide it by sum of f. It's very easy to understand, but be concentrated and be attentive. You are going to calculate fx. For this, f was 0.6, which was probability, and then EPS 1.92. We have got second fx. Then third probability was 0.2 and you need to multiply it with EPS 3.36. Alright guys, we have calculated third column, product of f and x. Now we will take a sum over here. Sum of what? Fx. Sum of column of fx would be taken, and we have got its sum 1.92. And now in actual practice, what you need to do, sum of fx would be divided by sum of f to calculate our average. As you know that sum of fx was calculated over here 1.92, and sum of f is needed, that would be equal to 1. As you know, probability total would always be equal to 1. So you can divide it with 1, or you may not divide. So finally we have got our mean answer as 1.92. This was our first answer, and in similar way you are going to calculate answer for mean for every part. This was your first part, and we need to make heading first. Okay, so this was your average calculation, average EPS for 0% debt. You have complete idea. We need to make 4 different parts, and we will use these headings for calculation of next average. We will change it, and now we will see 20% debt. Again, everything would be similar except for these EPS are now not needed. Let's remove them, and these calculations are also not needed. What we are going to do, everything would be altered according to second stage, where we need to calculate our average EPS according to 20% debt. So let's go back and see second part. Here we have calculated our second part. First probability was 0.2, and EPS which was calculated was 0.45. Where we have got first EPS, we will go back to the second part, and this is your second part, and second EPS is 2.25. So put over here. Then we will go to 20% that means second part, but 20%. So this is your second part, because next is third part is starting, and here you have your third EPS 4.05. So guys, we have completed it. Please be attentive and note it down what we are going to do. Fx is needed. Simply sum of fx would be divided by sum of f. To calculate fx, you will multiply first column which was named as f and second column which was named as x. Probability would be multiplied by EPS probability 0.2, and you will multiply it with x. First fx has been calculated. Now for second probability and second x would be multiplied. We have got 1.35, and for third probability 0.2 x 4.05, we have got our third fx. Now we will take sum of fx by adding all points over here. We need to add these 3 points. Alright, sum has been calculated. Now we will divide sum of fx with sum of f. Sum of fx 2.25, and we need to divide it with sum of f, which would always be 1. So it means 2.25 would be considered your mean. So it means we have completed second average as well. two averages are calculated. How many averages we need to calculate? Hopefully someone will give accurate answer 4, because 0% debt, 20% debt, 40% debt and 60% debt. So let's calculate our third average where conditions would be changed, and we are now having 40% debt, and this was for your first part. Let's mention it, and this was for your second part, and third part was also solved, and we will use these headings for calculation of average of fourth part. So guys, let's change headings. We are now solving fourth part, where instead of 40% debt we would have 60% debt. These calculations are now not needed. Let's remove them. These are also not needed. Okay, we will now put EPS for fourth part. This is your fourth part we have already calculated. So first EPS for fourth part. Look over here. This is your fourth part, and here it has been mentioned that it is 60% debt. First EPS which is calculated is 0.06. So put over here, minus sign has been with it. Second EPS was calculated, look over here, this is fourth part. First was taken minus 0.06 and then second 3.54, and for third, this is your third EPS 7.14. So guys, we have completed our second column of EPS. Now we will calculate FX, which is product of probability and EPS. First probability 0.2. To get the product, we need to multiply F and X, multiply EPS minus 0.06. We have got our first FX. For second, probability is 0.6, multiply EPS 3.54, second FX, and third probability is 0.2, 7.14 is your EPS. So we have calculated our column. Now we are open to calculate the sum of FX, and to calculate sum of FX we need this column. So we have got sum of FX 3.54. To calculate mean we need to divide it with sum of F, that was 1. So it means 3.54 is your final EPS. So guys, to calculate standard deviation we were in need to put our mean, and mean has been calculated. So this was your sub part. It's not complete part. This was your sub part where you have calculated averages. Let's mark it as it has been completed. And now we are going to calculate our standard deviation, for which these averages are needed to be put. And finally, this section, probability, is needed. We will take it as it is. And for these probabilities, average EPS would be needed, and we will denote it again as S. Since these are headings, let's wrap it up so that they can be visible easily. Once again, so guys, we have now to calculate our standard deviation, for which we need these two columns. Now please consider for zero point 0.2 probability, 0.6 probability and 0.2 probability is available, and you have three different EPS present which you have calculated over here for 0, and these probabilities are present. It's time to calculate their standard deviations. For standard deviations, you have your probabilities present over here. Please let me have a second. Over here we need to calculate our standard deviations, and to calculate that standard deviation, that's the problem. Please wait a second. All right.